So, how do you start writing a unit test? Well, a unit test should be precise and focused, and so should have a single subject. So I start by thinking about that subject quite carefully. I decide which subject I'm going to have this test on, and I make sure that within a single test class I only have one subject. I think that's a really important rule. It saves a lot of complications and makes your test much more readable. I prefer to start by writing down right at the top of the test case, in a field, the actual component or system or object under test. If it's a unit test, almost always it will be an object, and I will call it subject, and that makes it really clear in every test what the subject of that test is. I don't have to work it out, I can tell because it's written into the name of the variable used. So once I've done that, I'm then talking, because I want focused, precise unit tests, I'm not going to pick the whole object to test. That, in my opinion, often leads to problems. You should think carefully about a facet. What are you testing about that particular subject? Because really you should split your test cases up so they're in clearly named classes, which are related more to the domain language of the user or customer, and less to the language used particularly in your code. They should form a bridge or link between the two, ideally. And it's quite easy to do because it helps you focus on what you're testing. Now, perhaps it's library code, in which case you don't have a particular customer domain, but you will have a technical domain. And it's not uncommon for that technical domain of the library to be slightly different from the language used in the code. So, if you're writing library or framework code and you're trying to test it, what you need to do is make sure you're using the language of the library, the high-level user language of the library in your test and your test case naming, and then the lower-level technical naming, which you're going to adopt in the code when you come to go and use your actual object and method calls you're making within the tests. So, to move back, how do I start unit testing? I start by focusing carefully on the subject and thinking about what I want to test on it. I try and link that to the higher level domain of interest, which is the customer domain. Usually, if it's a customer piece-centric code, or if it's a library framework, it's a technical language, higher language of the library, not the low-level technical language of the code. And I start by having a field right at the top with the system under test, the SUT, with the name subject, so it's really easy to read. And that really helps me think in the right way, and that makes unit testing much easier, I think. Try it.